I am currently working my way through creating a long-form course on classic portraiture. I'll tell you where to find the course in just a minute. That's not what this video is about. This video is about what the creation of the course has made me think about and remember about my own past portrait shoots. The course itself is all about your basic classic studio portrait, like this one. Rather than purchasing each course separately, all of my courses are available to my members. In fact, once you become a member, you have access to all of the courses, all of my ebooks, and a bunch of other things. I will put a link in the description of this video to find out about channel membership or becoming a Patreon patron. I will also add a link to when I launched this course so that you can learn more about it too. But what this course has made me remember is that yes, I have done a ton of classic portraits in my studio, but I have also gone well beyond that. And in thinking towards finishing this beginner's course and potentially creating a more advanced portraiture course, I was thinking about what I would discuss in it. And then I started thinking about the specific photo projects where I really pushed my own creative boundaries in the studio. So I chose a handful of those photo shoots to reminisce with you about in the video today. Is this the droid you're looking for? This was a Halloween project. If you've been around here for a while, you know I'm a big Star Wars fan. And the joke here is that when asked what Star Wars character I most identify with, I generally say that I'd like to be Han Solo, but I'm probably more C-3PO. So here I put a fashion editorial spin on the Golden Droid. And I pushed my boundaries in all sorts of ways as both a model and a photographer, but let's stick to the studio part here. Raymond and I cut out portions of a paper backdrop. Actually, I did all the cutting because Raymond said he wanted nothing to do with that part. And we put the white paper backdrop behind it and then illuminated them from behind with continuous light. Then we used the studio lighting to put me into the Death Star-ish environment. I wish that we would have even pushed it a little bit further with the whole thing. More work on the background, more gold makeup, and I also wish that I'd been a little more prepared because that stretchy gold onesie that I ordered online didn't really fit me at all. So we were limited in the shots that we could take, but this was certainly a fun one. Vintage Pinup Witch. This was another Halloween project. I did research into pinup and I added my own spin to it. Many pinup images are against a plain background, but I had seen one where the model was sitting in a cartoon crescent moon, which gave me the night sky idea. So I poked holes in the black paper backdrop and like I did with the droid project, I lit it from behind with continuous light. It isn't a super noticeable part of the photo like the cutouts were in the droid project, but to me it does add that extra point of interest to the photos. It almost grounds them so that I'm not just floating against a dark background. And then I actually added the vignette in post-processing to further frame me. It's definitely still a simple setup, but I find that making even small changes to the setup can make a big difference in the result. Here's what happens when I pull the lights out of my studio. Here I used a studio backdrop, but I used natural lighting from windows rather than any artificial light. The thing here is that not everyone has studio lighting. It can be expensive, it takes up space. So I wanted to challenge myself to create a studio look without those lights. I positioned my backdrop to face the windows and I actually opened and closed the curtains on the windows until I liked the look. And while I did use a studio backdrop, it could have been anything. It could have been a sheet, a wall, or even just the room behind me. My final shoot with the Nikon D300S. This was supposed to be the last hurrah with my beloved D300S, but I ended up holding onto that camera for quite a while after this. I tend to have trouble getting rid of gear, but this was probably the last time I had it in the studio. And I won't lie, I put this whole thing together at the very last minute. I'm not sure where the idea came from, but I knew I wanted something kind of moody with almost a noir look. I grabbed wardrobe from my closet. I'm pretty sure I had gone running and I hadn't even showered yet, but the sweat helped keep my hair in place. Sorry if that was too much information. Anyway, I could have stopped there and just done a set of pretty photos, right? but I wanted more. I wanted a story of some sort. So I set up my background behind my desk, this very one that I'm sitting at now. And because this is a white IKEA table, I dropped a black backdrop over it. And I grabbed a deck of cards and something that looked like whiskey, or maybe it was whiskey, I don't remember. But then I added that low-key lighting look with studio lights. Funny behind the scenes story about this shoot. It took me forever to get ready because I didn't know what I wanted. I was looking for my cards, I was wrangling the background behind the desk, I was making decisions, and Raymond was drinking, which is funny because neither one of us does that very often, but he did that night, and by the time I was ready to shoot, he was having trouble with the camera. Now, I always direct him around these photo projects when I'm the model because, well, it's my business and I always have a vision of what I want, but he usually makes settings adjustments and such during the shoot because he's a good photographer. But not this time. He was unmanageable. I got the few shots that I wanted, going back and forth between sitting at the table and then going to him and looking at the back of the camera and making adjustments. I'm really happy with some of these shots, but Raymond was uncharacteristically not a ton of help that evening. From Out of the Shadows. Well, this was a Halloween project too. I love this one and I want to experiment with smoke again. I had wanted to do a smoky studio shoot for a long time. I had purchased a smoke machine years earlier, and because I knew it would be challenging, it just sat in a closet. But Halloween time tends to bring out my sense of adventure, so I talked Raymond into helping me set up in the garage. Again, with the paper backdrop. The beauty of the paper backdrop is that it is on a roll, so I just cut off the cut up portion of the backdrop and rolled more down. My vision was that I would fade into the background. I wanted the viewer to have to look at the photo for more than a moment to see what was going on. So I did wardrobe and hair to enhance that. And by hair, I mean a wig, because I had just cut my hair pretty short and it wasn't dark enough for my vision. So I also used very little light. We used continuous light here though, so that there was just less to think about. Managing smoke is actually a pain. Speaking of which, I mentioned that we set up in the garage, and that's so that we could open the garage a little bit to vent the room so that smoke alarms wouldn't go off. And then I just waved my arms around a whole bunch to get the smoke to move around. And when I released this project, I had more than a few commenters tell me that I could have done the shoot without smoke and then created the smoke effect in post-processing, but that would have defeated the purpose for me. It's not to say that I wouldn't ever do that, but I enjoyed the entire creative process of vision and setup of myself and the environment to the execution and the editing and sharing it all. High key blowouts and more. Oh my goodness, this was a bit of a hotly debated project in the comments section of the video. Even though the video was called High Key Blowouts, some viewers told me, wait for it, that the photo was blown out. In the video, I explained why it was blown out. I was attempting to recreate a watercolor print that hung on the wall of my childhood home. I was always drawn to that print. It was of a woman sitting on the ground, and it was notional. It was lacking in details. As I recall, the brush strokes were mainly blue, but maybe there was some black as well. But there was a lot of negative space, a whole lot of untouched white. So I came pretty close to my vision here. And what's interesting to me here is that I have almost never tried to recreate a photo that I've seen. I tend to take a part of something that I've seen and create my own project from that tidbit. But here I was really trying to capture the vision I had in my head of that long gone print. Abstract body landscapes. Well, this is the opposite of blown out. This was a part of a monthly theme I had created, Abstract April. I was trying to fit all of my projects that April into the abstract umbrella. So for these photos, I used darkness, a shallow depth of field, and actually limiting the area of light to achieve photos that you probably have to look at for a moment to realize what's going on. This is definitely something that I enjoy in art, be it photography or painting or something else. I like it when I want to look at something for more than a moment. So here we are with this. Let's give a couple of honorable mentions today. First, string lights and 3 tips for shooting in a makeshift studio. Now, this wasn't technically in the studio, it was in the living room. There was no studio backdrop. I did use one small continuous studio light though. This one was fun, but also quite tedious. I had this vision in my head that I wanted string lights raining down on me. I wanted them everywhere. I wanted them close to the camera. I wanted them close to me. I wanted those balls of light to be varied, kind of like I was floating in a sea of light. But I wanted the photos to feel intimate, like it's just the subject and the viewer. So I purchased a bunch of inexpensive string lights and, well, I taped them to the ceiling. I draped them from the ceiling fan. It wasn't pretty with the room lights on, but when we turned the room lights off and the string lights on and adjusted the camera settings so you couldn't see that there was a white wall behind me, it turned into a magical space, which is exactly what I wanted. Another honorable mention is the black bath. Here was a time when I used natural lighting and my home as the backdrop for the photos. This was a part of a monthly theme where I was trying to use irony in my projects. And a gritty black bath where you would normally expect to get nice and clean seems fairly ironic. The creative challenges here were many. As the model, I had to get creative with covering myself in the bath and also being mostly submerged in opaque liquid. As the creative director, I had to figure out how to make the water black and opaque. By the way, it included a lot of charcoal. And then I had to figure out the shots I wanted Raymond to take and direct him without getting out of the tub. It took patience. I got cold sitting in there for so long, but I do love how some of these turned out with the gritty charcoal sticking to the sides of the tub, and to me, not fun to clean up though. I have so many more ideas for studio projects. I have wanted to paint one of my paper backdrops for quite some time. I've thought of doing some sort of otherworldly space-looking creation, and I have a shopping bag full of glitter in one of those drawers that I have been wanting to use for a particular vision that I have. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know that I don't like rules. I love the idea that I can create whatever I want and tell any story I want using my camera. I appreciate that you all stick around to make this all possible. As I was considering the projects that I wanted to include in this video, I thought of some of the projects that I have done outside that have involved some creativity and boundaries pushing. If you'd like to see something like this video, but when I used the world as my studio, let me know in the comments. It's fun for me to go back and look at these old photo projects. I forget how many there have been in the last 10 plus years. Don't forget to check out the links in the description if you are interested in a not so boundaries pushing classic portraiture course. Those types of portraits are the type that lay the groundwork for more creative work like I've shared today. Like this video if you found it entertaining, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you for watching.